Have you ever made a fast decision under pressure and then later questioned it? I think that we all have, myself included. And today I want to talk about the decision quality under pressure. And I want to talk about what the data shows about intuition and stress, and also how you can train your decisions to help you move closer toward the outcomes that you actually want. My name's Amy Miller. Let's go ahead and dive in. First, when you think of the word intuition, I think we could probably we all have likely different ideas of what intuition means, and myself included. Maybe we think of gut instinct, maybe we think of something sort of mystical, but let's go ahead and scientifically define intuition. The scientific definition of intuition is actually pattern recognition, and it's informed by experience, and it works well when you are regulated. And without presence, intuition can be negatively impacted by external pressures, fear, urgency, overconfidence, maybe our habits, what we would normally decide in a situation, which if you take that situation and put it in a different context, it may not lead to the best decision when you're using your implying intuition without presence. But with presence, intuition can become a powerful tool that you have in decision making. So now let's look at presence, and what do I mean by that? Well, presence is being aware, grounded, attentive without the distraction or reactivity. And when the nervous system is regulated, well, then you're in a present state. You can achieve presence when the nervous system is regulated, and you can then have more focused attention. And it's from this state, from a present regulated state, that you can better pick up on, notice signals, data, rather than defaulting to an immediate reaction. And presence is this is the state that's going to allow you to accurately interpret the signals that you're picking up on. First, to be able to accurately pick up on them, and then interpret. And clarity is a state. It's not a personality trait, which is good news. That means that it can be achieved. So let's look at some of the supporting research. The brain is wired to rapidly make sense of incomplete information, ambiguous information, often before our conscious reasoning catches up. You ever notice when you have a moment, maybe it's a positive emotion, maybe it's a pause or hesitation, but that feeling is there before we have time to interpret it. That signal is there, and so the brain is making fast in meanings and interpretation, even when you don't have all of the information just yet. So intuition it's pattern recognition, and it's taking context, the situation context, and your past experience, and working together. So rather than guessing, intuition is compressed experience. And we'll talk more about that. But those moments that you have, that pause, that hesitation, it'll happen sometimes in just a second, really quickly. And the feeling, the signal is, wait a minute, I'm unclear. I need more information here, but we're not fully articulating that. But that moment, that signal, that's there. And so we want to be operating as much of the time as possible, as best as we can, from a regulated state, so we can pick up on those signals to help guide our next direction in decision making. But when we're coming from a dysregulated state, this is when intuition can become unreliable. So we want to work to be present as much as possible, so that intuition can be a signal amplifier. You hear the signal, okay, now what is the signal trying to tell me? Why is it showing up? And what do I need to do next? So what might this look like, for example, in real time? Let's say you're giving a presentation, your slide deck is good to go. You've checked the research, you've practiced, it all checks out. But you notice, if you're coming from a present regulated state, as you're delivering the talk, there's something off in the room. So maybe something's not getting through. Well, if you're coming from a present regulated state, you'll be more likely to pick up on, okay, something's a little bit off here. And then that signal, you can interpretate it to guide your next direction. Well, what do I need to, let me pause here. Let me ask a clarifying question to make sure we're all on the same page, for example. So that in this kind of pause, this kind of presence, and coming from a regulated state to then pick up on that signal can be the difference in noticing misalignment before it starts and compounds, rather than just letting that moment pass you by, and then you've got maybe a team or a group that's missing what you meant, important points in the data that you shared. That's just an example. And also the research supports that our emotions are part of the signal. And so our feelings are not noise or distractions, but instead useful data. And we want to pay attention to that information, to what our emotions are informing us, trying to inform us of, rather than getting in the way of as a distraction. So you want to give attention there and understand that intuition, there's emotions are always going to be a component there. So we don't want to shy away from how we're feeling. Instead, we want to pay closer attention and go deeper there. But when we're dysregulated, then our emotions can distort judgment, versus when we are in a regulated, calmer state, then our emotions can sharpen the insight. So for example, we've all experienced undesired outcomes. You might call it a failure. But if you think back to the emotional state that was guiding your decisions, it likely was coming from an unregulated, dysregulated state, maybe fear-based. Whereas when we're present, we can look more objectively at the problem. So for example, hindsight is 2020. We often say, well, that's because the emotional component is no longer there, but more specifically, the emotional component that was coming from a dysregulated state. So we were really stressed, we weren't thinking clearly, we made a decision that led to an undesired outcome. And then you can think back to an outcome that was positive, you achieved the desired result. Where was your emotional state at the start of your decision-making process there? And see if you can see the difference there, do it an after action review. So maybe, for example, for a leader who is under a lot of pressure to make a fast hire, maybe there's a signal there that something's telling me, while the candidate looks great on paper, I'm not sure that there's a hesitation. But if we don't pause long enough to notice that signal and try to interpret what it's trying to tell us, and then maybe it's just getting additional information, for example, and we instead take action we're more likely to do that, take an action from that's going to result in maybe a bad hire or delays in the process when we're coming from a dysregulated state. Or maybe you are a candidate who recently lost your job, and maybe your runway is limited, and so you're under stress and pressure to find your next move quickly. Well, when you're operating from that unclear or unregulated state, you may be more likely to make a wrong decision in your next career move. So this is the protection point. I titled the video "Presence is the new protection," because when we're present, when we're operating from a calm, regulated state, then we can better interpret what our intuition is trying to tell us. And I think it's quite possible to never make another mistake when we're really listening to ourselves. You can think back to lots of times where we made mistakes that led us down a path that really was not what we were wanting. And it comes, when we think back, there was that signal there. We can always come back to it. It was there, but what state was I operating from? And then which direction did I go based on the emotional state and the decisions that you were making. All right, so your emotions, when you're coming when you're in a present state, they can be informative and rather than reactive. They can help you respond rather than react when you are regulated. So stressors, however, can lead to a dysregulated state that can negatively impact your ability to stay present and to hear those signals. So under time pressure, you may feel that urgency, and you might mistake it for clarity. But presence allows you to slow down just enough to ask, okay, let me pause here. The data that I'm interpreting, the way that I'm feeling, am I clear on, is it helping to make me a clearer decision? Or is it, am I finding myself reacting because of external pressures? So another piece of the supporting research is that speed and accuracy are always in tension, but decision theory shows that the there's always going to be a trade-off there. Okay, so for example, as speed increases, well, accuracy can decrease, but when you apply your intuition, this is where it can help you stay grounded and aware, and then you can make rapid judgments without sacrificing quality as much. So speed without presence can produce false confidence. Whereas when you have speed with presence, then you can more likely make decisions that are going to bring you toward the desired outcome faster, help you make progress toward the goal that you're working toward. Something else that I found interesting in the research that it talked about with intuition is that it's domain specific. So for example, if you are an expert in one area of your role or in your field, well, we'll use the example from the research. They talked about a foreman, for example, being able to quickly assess what's happening on the floor, and they've developed that pattern recognition, so they can very quickly arrive at the decision that's going to be useful to move forward without working to gather additional insights, because they've got all of that experience, and their instincts are, their intuition is picking up on that pattern recognition. But then let's say you are a newly promoted leader, for example, and one of the reasons that you've had success and got promoted is because you did a good job of intuiting, reading customer signals and knowing when to dig deeper. But those instincts, they may have gotten you to a leadership role, but if you haven't had experience, for example, in navigating interview process, in hiring, and you're relying on those same instincts, they may not apply in a different context. So that was an interesting point from the research. But if you are coming from a clear, regulated state, you will be better able to pick up on, all right, I don't have, when and where you need an additional resource, when you need more information. If we're operating from a clear, calm, regulated state, we'll be better able to say, you know what, I've got to pause here. I'm interpreting this signal, and it's letting me know I need some help here. So where is my resource? What question do I need to ask? But when we're coming from a place of calm, regulated state, and we're relying on our intuition in an area that we maybe don't have experience, and this is where instincts can potentially get us, intuition rather. Intuition is defined differently than instincts. So trying to I don't want to mix up the two there. But anyhow, so for example, another example, like if you are a leader and you excel at strategic planning, okay, but then maybe you struggle to assess talent assessment under pressure. Well, if you are aware of where the challenge is, where the struggle is, well, then you can be better able to utilize your resources to get that external help when you need it, and still make better quality decisions under pressure, just by recognizing, all right, this is not my strongest intuitive domain. I need more data here. And also the research supports that intuition is better built through practice. And so how can you practice? I'm going to give you a framework here shortly, but learning, of course, that is explicit, and then practice, just repetitive practice, but also feedback that is timely, getting and doing your after action reviews and taking feedback not only from yourself through the after action review, but with a trusted colleague or coworker, so that you're getting that feedback from in real time, that's accurate. And this is what helps, reflection rather, is what helps turn presence into experience, and that's where you really lock in the learning from the reflection. So always do your after action reviews. Review the decision. Okay, what worked, what didn't, why. And this is how you're one way that you can actively train your intuitive system, so that you'll have that operating system moving forward. and you'll be all right. So let's talk about the framework that I call clear, and this is how you can start to practice level up your intuitive operating system. And it starts with so it's an acronym, and the C is for calm. So you want to regulate first. This is clarity requires a state change, and you probably have heard of William H. McRaven's book Make Your Bed, and the core message in that I want to share from his book, just to reshare that, is you want to complete one small task first thing in the morning, and this is going to help you then create momentum, and it builds behavior consistency, and then that consistency builds discipline. Well, similarly, if you're working to train um, your your clarity state, where you're operating from a present, calm, clear state, you want to start with that habit first thing in the morning, just something small, because how likely, if you start your day super stressed, rushing out the door, skipping over that moment to get calm and present with yourself, well, how likely are you going to be able to conjure up that calm, clear state to make decisions from later on in the workday when the pressure is on? So I recommend starting with just 1 to 5 minutes, and then you can later build up to 10 or 15 minutes, where, before you check any emails, before you check any Slack, before um, any anything, any external data, go inward, do some deep breathing, focus inward, and see what comes up. And so you can train this habit first thing in the morning. I promise you, it is a game changer. And sometimes it can feel like, if you're just starting with that morning meditation practice, or working to just kind of take a few minutes to yourself first thing in the morning, if you feel like I don't have the time, start with just 1 or 2 minutes, and it will compound, and you'll be able to build up to 10 or 15. And then the more you do it, you will the benefits just compound over time. Have so many examples I could share of that, but we'll keep going with the clear framework. All right, so calm is the first step in the framework, and then you want to listen. Notice the internal signals. What's coming up? This is where intuition is going to show up. This is pattern recognition, noticing rather the signals before you start to analyze. So body cues, emotions, gut responses, gut feelings, and then the external signals, what's coming up externally. And you're not judging anything during this time. You're starting with a place of calm, and you're listening to what comes up. And this is going to help you better interpret the signals that are coming up internally and externally later in the workday under stress. And then the next step is evaluate. So you'll be able to better then, if you're coming from a place of calm, and then you can hear the signal, and then you can evaluate, okay, what's coming from a place of fear. And fear is going to be loud. Your intuition, that signal is quiet, but it's consistent. That if you've ever made that fast decision under pressure, it turned out to not be the best one, you can likely think back to, okay, there was that moment there. It wasn't a loud pause or hesitation, but it was consistent. It was there. So that's the difference between fear and intuition. And then from there, you can act. So that's the next step in the clear framework. You decide based on the information, the data that you have intuited. And it's just one decision. It's just one step, and it's going to guide you toward your next step. A lot of times we want to jump ahead to that fifth step, but we're skipping over the signal. We're skipping over the first step. And this is when we can get ourselves into trouble. Rather than going toward the direction that we want to go, we're going further away from where we actually want to be. And then the last step in the clear framework is to reflect. So reflect or it's review. So it's calm, listen, evaluate, act, and then review. And then in the review, this is where you want to do that self-reflection and without any self-criticism. But this reflection piece, this is what's building the pattern libraries. Okay, I've been here before. This is what worked before. This is what didn't. What am I going to carry forward? And what am I going to leave behind? What new action am I going to take moving forward? And then in this through this process, you've already rehearsed that pattern, that new action that you're going to take moving forward, so you'll be more likely to carry forward. All right, so you want to, if you can start to train calm when you are at the start of the day, well, then you'll be able to better train yourself to operate from a calm, regulated system when you're under stress, when the decisions are those high stakes decisions during your workday. So presence is going to help you progress. Presence protects your intuition to help you make progress toward the goal. And the clear framework can help you build that capacity. And this is why one of my favorite topics to talk about is fear versus intuition. Because it's where research, leadership, and real world decision making all kind of come together and intersect. And it's a very important lesson that matters and helps in business, in leadership, and in life. So that is it for this one. I hope that you got some value. If you did, you are welcome to like and subscribe to stay connected. And you can also reach out if you'd like to message me. My contact is below. And we'll see you in the next one.